Have you ever felt a quiet tug at the back of your mind hinting that something in a conversation was off, yet you couldn't explain it? Maybe you caught yourself saying yes to a favor you never wanted to do, backing down in a debate even though you had all the facts, or trusting someone who later showed a side you never expected. If any of that rings a bell, and it almost surely does, then what you're about to hear matters. Because the unvarnished truth is that nearly every day someone is steering your choices: relatives, colleagues, strangers on social media, public figures, anyone who understands the hidden levers inside the human mind. The most unsettling part is that this steering happens without special gadgets or movie-style hypnosis. Real manipulation works best when you firmly believe you're the one in charge, that each choice was yours alone, and that any slip-up sits squarely on your shoulders. Most people drift through life like pieces on a game board they didn't know existed. When they start to push back, they feel an instant wave of guilt, fear, or second-guessing because over time they've been trained not to resist. If right now you're thinking, "That never happens to me," pause, because that's exactly the thought a skilled manipulator wants you to hold. I'm not here to pat you on the back, I'm here to hand you tools. As Niccolò Machiavelli understood, masters of influence rarely need to raise their voice. They watch, map out your soft spots, then move. They already know what pulls you forward. If you don't figure that out for yourself, you will be pushed wherever they choose. By the end of this part, you'll see how people bend others without ever seeming to. You'll spot the emotional traps, and you'll start to guard the places inside you that open the door to control. Real freedom isn't only about doing what you want. It's about knowing why you want it in the first place. This is a shout out to anyone tired of being a tool in someone else's plan. Anyone who has been blamed, hushed, or molded until they questioned their own thoughts. Here you'll start stepping out of the puppet role and into the strategist role. But be warned, once you notice the strings, you can't convince yourself they aren't there. From this point on, be ready. What you learn could change how you look at people and how you look at yourself. Think about those folks who always seem to land what they want, even when they clearly haven't earned it. They don't yell, threaten, or beg. They charm. They involve. They nudge you into believing that giving ground was your brilliant idea. That's not simple charisma, it's technique. It's manipulation in its cleanest, most powerful form. These people don't act on whim. They watch. They study your reactions, your weak points, the feelings you don't talk about. They notice when validation lights up your eyes, when rejection scares you stiff, and when the word no leaves you uneasy. Then they turn those cues into levers. Manipulation begins long before any spoken word. It starts with the silent reading of your posture, your tone, the tiny pause before you answer. Some influencers use warmth. They smile, hand out compliments, set themselves apart as the one person who truly gets you. They make you feel noticed, valued, almost special. Under that friendly layer sits pure calculation. They're stacking up emotional IOUs in your mind. Because deep down, most of us are wired to repay kindness. The instant you feel you owe them, you start bending. Others reach for guilt. They slip into the victim role, telling you how overwhelmed they are, how nobody else understands, how only you can help. Bit by bit, they place a silent burden on your shoulders. If you try to step back or refuse, they don't fight. One sigh, a half-hurt remark, or a downcast look does the job. A clever manipulator rarely needs to ask outright. They maneuver until you volunteer. Then we have those who trade in They sketch disaster scenes. If you do that, you'll end up alone, or walk away, and you'll never find someone like me. They don't tie you down with ropes, they trap you with thoughts. They make you doubt your own strength to act, and you cage yourself. None of these tactics is new. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli dissected the craft with chilling clarity, showing that power often relies less on force and more on grasping human drives. He noted, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands because all can see but few can touch." That sentence explains the whole show. Manipulation is a stage display designed to look like reality. The manipulator builds a theater, assigns roles, writes the lines, and you, without sensing it, play along. The scariest part is that you honestly believe the plot belongs to you. Yet the play only runs because there's something inside you that makes it possible. A gap, a raw spot, a hidden lock. And that leads us straight to your personal vulnerabilities, the main reason you keep getting pulled. As long as you can't spot what weakens you, you'll keep labeling manipulation as love, loyalty, or respect. Let's shine a light on those cracks. If this material is clicking for you, remember to hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps this channel moving. Now, understand this. You're not easy to sway because you're fragile. Every human has a blind side, an old hurt, a quiet wish that behaves like an open gate. That's where manipulators slip in. They don't push, they simply listen. They pick up on what even you haven't noticed. Some of us carry a bottomless craving for approval. From early on, we learned that affection had to be earned. Praise felt conditional. So we bend our behavior just to be accepted, valued, seen. That empty space in the chest is an open invite. The manipulator offers crumbs of recognition, and we trade away our independence. They tell us exactly what we hunger to hear, and we hand over loyalty we barely question. Others lug around invisible. We feel bad for putting ourselves first, for setting limits, for declining requests. Maybe we were taught that looking out for ourselves is selfish, and that giving until it hurts is noble. Because of that lesson, when alarms go off inside, we ignore them, afraid of seeming unkind. Manipulators recognize that guilt in an instant. They present themselves as people only wanting what's best for us. With that mask, they start steering our choices by hooking us with a twisted sense of duty. Then there are those haunted by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being left, fear of drifting unseen. That dread drives them to cling to any bond, even toxic ones, just to keep the emptiness at bay. Manipulators hand them a fake sense of safety, then threaten to yank it away. Without me, you're nothing, they imply. And the frightened person believes it because that same fear whispered it first. Every one of these weak points has a backstory. They come from past episodes, quiet traumas, lessons carved into us by family, school, or culture. Until you face those buried wounds, they stay raw, and anyone approaching with a bright smile and hidden plans can prod them. Machiavelli saw this clearly. Genuine control doesn't always need force. It needs an accurate map of human frailties. The nature of peoples is variable, he wrote, and it's easy to convince them of one thing, but difficult to keep them in that conviction. With that single line, Machiavelli exposed the weak spot on which every skilled manipulator builds a strategy. Persuasion is never their real objective. Instead, they slip into the unguarded moments where attention fades and habits take over. They don't push you to accept brand new beliefs. They wait until your mind wanders, then settle into that open space and move the pieces while you are barely aware a game is underway. Yet, there is a door out of this room, and it starts with refusing to remain emotionally predictable. Once you learn to spot the little hollows in your own armor and fill them, you become a far smaller target. That shift from target to clear-minded player is exactly what we are mapping in this part. Practical ways to build emotional plating so thick and flexible that outside pressure slides off. Most people say they want freedom from manipulation, but far fewer are willing to swallow the cost, which is ruthless awareness. The truth undoubtedly cuts first and heals later, and the earliest cut you feel comes from the hope that simple kindness shields you. It doesn't. In fact, when kindness, empathy, and patience roam without boundaries, they wave a flag that every opportunist can see. Building emotional immunity does not call for turning to stone, it calls for waking up. The idea is to catch the mental reflexes that manipulators tug, and then stop them cold. The first move toward that wake-up is watching your own patterns like a detective. Pause and notice, what emotional buttons get you to cave? Do you sag under the fear of letting someone down, panic at the thought of rejection, or rush to pacify tension no matter what it costs you? The instant those drivers become clear, the rules of the game start shifting in your favor. Next comes what Machiavelli would have labeled strategic detachment. That does not mean withdrawing from feeling. It means stepping back far enough to see the scene unfold before you leap. It looks like listening without being swept in, weighing compliments without treating them as gospel, spotting emotional tugging mid-pull, and inserting a breath before any reply. Manipulators bank on urgency. They want you reacting, not reasoning. So reason. Lift yourself a beat above the moment long enough to examine which emotion the other person is trying to spark and why. The third element is cultivating unpredictability. Manipulators plan moves by charting your standard reactions. If they cry, you console. If they flatter, you relax. If they push, you yield. Break that rhythm and the board flips. Offer a calm no where they anticipated a soft yes. Fade out when they counted on you to plead. Hold silence when they prepared for fireworks. Disruption forces their hand and cracks the mask, making it impossible for them to run the old script unseen. Equally vital is shaping a solid inner identity. The clearer you are about who you are, the less compulsion you feel to prove it, and the smaller the foothold anyone has on your self-image. Manipulators earn their influence by twisting how you view yourself, throwing little doubts, nudging you to reevaluate through their lens, anchoring your worth to their approval. When your own picture of yourself holds steady, that external tug loses force. But let's be blunt, this resilience is practice, not theory. No single video confers permanent immunity. It grows in the daily drill of checking your reactions, delaying that itch to please, and choosing to stand by a decision even when tension fogs the air. You owe the world many things, honesty, fairness, but you do not owe anyone the keys to your mind. Protecting that ground in a climate of constant emotional play is an act of quiet rebellion. Machiavelli wrote that men must be pampered or destroyed, for if merely offended they will take revenge. It sounds brutal, yet it tells an uncomfortable truth. In the arena of power, neutrality rarely survives. Either you run the emotional landscape, or it runs you. But what happens when the manipulator isn't some distant adversary, but someone you share a roof, an office, even a bed with? Walking away is not always possible. So the field of battle moves inside familiar walls. In the next stretch, we will slide into that intimate terrain, how to guard yourself when the one steering your feelings is also intertwined with your daily life. And that may be your toughest test. Still, let's keep focus here, because seeing manipulation in strangers is easy compared with spotting it in people you care about, a parent who sacrificed. For you, a partner who once felt like refuge, a boss who handed you a first break, a friend from the days when mistakes were cheap. In those tight circles, manipulation arrives wrapped in warmth, loyalty, and shared history, and fear of losing the bond snares you in a sticky web that quietly drains energy, clarity, and identity. The close-range manipulator doesn't often need outright lies. They tilt the story just enough. They seldom raise their voice. They hint. They don't block choices. They make you feel rotten for choosing differently. Gradually, you stop asking real questions. You tread carefully, trying not to set off landmines. You pre-edit your words to keep the atmosphere smooth. Without noticing, you're shut inside an unseen cage built from feelings. In romance, it wears the mask of adoration. I only do this because I love you. Without you, my life has no meaning. That isn't love. It's emotional ransom. In a family, it dresses as tradition. You can't do this to your mother. You owe us respect. Respect born of guilt is simply control. In the workplace, it parades as loyalty. You have to be grateful. Who else will give you a chance like this? Gratitude turned into debt is straight manipulation. Here lies the core rule. Nearness does not excuse emotional trespass. Affection grants no license to sculpt another person with fear or guilt. Yet ending the cycle demands swallowing another hard truth. Not every affectionate relationship is healthy. Not every individual who loves you knows how to let you be free, and some bonds that feel like protection are merely fences that keep you from stretching. How do you move forward? Start by drawing boundaries, plain, calm lines that stand without lengthy defense. A steady no carries more weight than 1,000 rushed explanations. After the line comes exposure. State what you observe, what you feel, and what you refuse to allow going forward, not to talk the other person into agreement, but to anchor yourself before your own eye. And when you finally draw that line in the sand, stand on it. because pushback is inevitable. First a burst of sarcasm, then a flood of self-pity, maybe days of frosty silence meant to wear you down. A manipulator lives on the wobble in your stance. They probe to see if one sharp word or one tear can make you retreat. Here's the lesson. Few dare to face. Sometimes real care for another person means stepping aside, quitting the broken dance, and letting them confront the emptiness they keep avoiding. As long as you stay to soothe, explain, or prop them up, they will not shift, and piece by piece, you will vanish. It hurts. Yet the hurt is the toll you pay for a wider sight, one that peers past friendly phrases, glossy masks, and tidy intentions. With that clearer sight, we move to the practical layer, folding Machiavelli's strategic lens into everyday life so your mind stays armored in a world where nearly everything competes for a slice of your attention. The moment has come to tilt the board. Machiavelli never wrote to comfort. Polishing an image of virtue was never his mission. He faced events exactly as they were, stripped of polite varnish, and his readers either recoiled or learned. If you want to keep your mental footing in the swirl of today, you must adopt the same unsparing perspective, cool analysis, steady distance, and icy focus. Think about where we stand now. Non-stop streams of ads, timelines, speeches, even casual messages run on finely tuned influence. Social feeds, branding campaigns, power struggles in offices or governments. Every arena is laced with calculation. Miss that fact, and you get swept away by it. Machiavelli viewed people as reliably driven by benefit and feeling. Whoever grasps those two gears steers the whole machine. He said men generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Everyone can see, but few can touch. And in that single observation, he spelled out the current game. Shaping perception outranks proving. Control the story and you channel decisions. Shape the image and you harvest trust. Read the hidden motives and you steer behavior without ever raising your voice. Translated into day-to-day life, that means turning off emotional autopilot. Machiavelli had no faith in blanket morality. He weighed results in context. A generous gesture can be weaponized. Blunt honesty blurted at the wrong moment can sink leverage. Endless self-sacrifice soon becomes servitude. Freedom requires learning the rules and playing them well. First skill, relentless observation. Watch people the way Machiavelli watched dukes. Judge not by promises tossed out in public, but by choices made when no audience claps. Map repeated behaviors. Ignore pretty excuses. Words are missed, interests are footprints. Second skill, anticipation. Manipulators arrange their moves like chess, always thinking one turn ahead. If you merely respond, you are already late. Third skill, wield silence. Oversharing is a gift to anyone hunting leverage. A quiet pause baffles assumptions, earns respect, breaks tempo. When you don't react as scripted, the performance stalls, and in that moment the power gap flips. Add a fourth skill that many overlook, command of ambiguity. Machiavelli taught rulers to appear virtuous whether or not they were. Today that means matching your tone, posture, and language to the room without surrendering your core. Reveal only what serves your aim. Hold the rest behind a curtain, because true leverage lives in what stays hidden. Fifth, and maybe most crucial, take charge of your own emotional climate. A manipulator counts on your shaky inner balance, doubts, spikes of fear, restless need to pry things open. Know your triggers, steady your breathing, and you become a wall they can't scale. Remember another line from the Florentine thinker. The prudent man should follow the paths beaten by the great, and imitate those who have been excellent, so that even if he does not reach their level, he may come close. Study the craft of those who played the board expertly, and you stop being a pawn on it. Now, after mapping the gears of manipulation and laying out defensive tactics, one question hangs in the air. How do you translate insight into muscle, into a daily posture that refuses to bend? We cross that bridge by seizing total ownership of the mind. As long as you forfeit that ground, someone else, maybe not a cartoon villain but a smiling colleague, a line from childhood, an unexamined social code, will gladly occupy it. The pressure isn't confined to outside voices, it echoes in long-held assumptions you never challenged, in moods you treat as infallible reminders of reality, in choices you believe sprang from freedom yet were quietly born from worry, guilt, or the hunger for approval. True liberty blooms the minute you strip the label free will from what is actually conditioned response. Liberty, though, charges a steep fee. It demands dismantling the comforting fiction that every person around you means well. It asks you to chip away at the polite self-portrait of someone who must always be pleasant, flexible, and on call. It requires enduring the uncomfortable hush that follows a firm no, the unfamiliar space that opens when you walk out of roles that once defined you. You stop being handled the moment you stop needing collective applause. When the dread of disappointing fades, clarity fills the gap, and you can meet the stare of anyone who once tugged your strings and say with quiet finality, no more. Whether this knowledge changes your path is solely up to you. You can slide back into usual rhythms, forget the mechanics, and keep operating inside a game designed by others. Or you can begin training right now. Observe, decode, resist, and rebuild. Choose to become the person who cannot be cornered by guilt, who spots the hidden agenda under polite words, who strides straight while crowds wander in loops. Drop a comment below describing the instant you first recognized manipulation in your life. What flicked the light on? Or note where you still feel snared and want a route out. Speaking the experience out loud is the opening crack in the cycle. And if this breakdown sparked fresh vision, don't pause here. Watch the follow-up video. It stacks directly on the foundation we've set. Understanding grows like a ladder, each step lifting you farther from the fog. Keep climbing. Truth doesn't just set you loose, it reshapes you. See you there. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.